Cuatro Morado, Sulapue, Sego, Wacha, Lalin, Tansi, Ju, Bonru, Hola. I know I didn't cover everybody, but I just want to say greetings. Thank you all for being here today on this beautiful day. It's a National Day of Remembrance. It's not a holiday, it's not a celebration. It's a day when we remember the children who never came home, who should have come home. And P.H. Bryce, who did the research for Indian Northern Affairs in Canada, said that these children were dying unnecessarily. All the unmarked graves right across this country should be the shame of Canada. And I'm not just saying Canada, but its provinces, the church. And now you cannot say that you do not know. You all know now. Your governments know of the genocide that happened against Indigenous children, all to take our land, because we were a problem, and we are still a problem, because we are not giving up. We are going to continue to remember those children, to remember those Indian residential school survivors who passed on long before the apology was given, the court-ordered apology. I want to talk about our human rights that are not being respected. Our human rights and the rights to self-determination. When there is numerous international human rights obligations that Canada and Quebec are obliged to uphold, and we see them not even upholding the lowest standards, then there is cause for concern. So how do you reconcile when the other side is breaking all the rules? How do we do that? I want to see by a show of hands, because I don't know how many are Indian residential school survivors marching with us today. How many are day school survivors? We had our languages taken from us in those schools. I grew up in a Kanyakahaga family. Both my parents spoke Kanyakahaga. And they were denied the right to speak the language in the schools in Oka. No, the municipalities, corporations, provinces, territories, and the federal government are all obliged to uphold our rights and respect our rights. Because what's going on now is the perpetuation of a genocidal project that happened over a century ago. And there is this systemic denial of this genocide. And so I want to propose to you, especially when there's an election coming up, there should be a national monument of genocide against Indigenous people. There needs to be a genocide museum of the Americas, so that it's in your face. Because your oppression of your laws are in our face on a daily basis. A couple of nights ago, we did a vigil for Joyce Echaquan, who talked about she wanted equity, those principles which the Legault government denies Indigenous people. When you deny something, you are part of the problem and the continuation of the genocidal project. The right to self-determination includes everything about our identity. The right to protect our land. When we say land back, we're not about taking people's homes. We want the lands that are fields for the monarch butterflies, the homes for all our relations, from the fish, the turtles, the wolves, the deers, we want their habitats to be protected. Because when we do those words said before all else, we are bringing them into the conversation of what our right to self-determination is. It's not about just being human. It's about the face is not yet born, and the kind of legacy that we are leaving behind for them. Equality means the right to be different. The right to be able to say, we are the first peoples of this land. This is our land. That's what acknowledgements are about today. They're not just words to be said before a meeting. They're not just words for corporations to pretend that they profess to promote and respect our rights. They are about saying, I am a Kanyakahaga land or whatever Indigenous people's lands you're on. And I want to respect their right to protect their lands, to protect their languages. We need control over our education, not Quebec to have control over our education. We want it all. And when the laws of this country work only for a certain group of people and do not work for Indigenous people, then we have a problem. It means that Quebec, Canada, and our provinces and territories are not upholding their own rule of law. They discriminate against Indigenous people. And as long as the Indian Act controls our lives on a daily basis, we will not be free, you will not be free. You will not live in a just society. You do not live in a democracy where oppression of Indigenous people is the norm. When we cannot even get services in our languages, services that respect our human rights. And our rights, our identity, our spirituality is connected to that land that we keep talking about, that we want back. We want that land back without corporations, without racists saying that we've given enough to the Indians. We want protection for our rights, our self-determination. We demand better. Those children should not have died for nothing. Those children deserve to come home, to pick their languages, to pick the medicines, to understand what it means to be a human being. They were treated, they were dehumanized. That is your history. What are you going to do about it, Canada and Quebec? What are you going to do to make changes and make sure that this day is not just an orange shirt day, that this is a day when you remember the shame of your country? We need to start speaking the language of human rights. In our languages, there's no ambiguity in what you mean. And our languages are spoken since we don't know when, but they're a gift from the Creator, Goano, our language. And I think that if you believe in human rights, if you believe in justice and democracy and freedom, look in your own backyard. Look at not what's going on somewhere else, but look at the neighborhood that we are on. This was full of cornfields and longhouses. Our people are buried perhaps underneath the very steps that we are marching on today. There are many unmarked graves besides the Indian residential school system, and the municipalities like Oka are digging up our lands to put more homes, but not for Indigenous people, for settlers who could not care less whether or not we march today, for settlers who think about money only and not about a legacy that we are leaving behind for future generations. If you believe and you say that you are a freedom-loving society, then you can no longer remain silent and make sure all these politicians who are asking for your vote to see if they really understand international law, human rights for Indigenous people, not just rights to self-determination, but our human rights. I have been doing this for 32 years. Woo! I have not felt the benefit of the work that I'm doing on human rights. I see here, though, hope. Orange is the color of a bright sunset or a bright sunrise. Be that beacon of light and hope for all people. Make sure that your governments respect our rights to self-determination, because it is in with your constitution. It is in your international human rights obligations. We don't need these money-grubbing politicians who look at us and say, how much does reconciliation cost? We haven't even started the road. We're not even on that reconciliation road because we're still asking for our rights to be respected. So please, make your voice known. All those children who died, they deserve justice. And they're looking at you all today for justice. So don't be silent. Put pressure on those politicians. Change the curriculum that's in the schools. Read the TRC's calls to action. And make sure every judge, every lawyer, every police officer, every teacher, every social worker, everyone understands what Indigenous people's human rights and self-determination mean. In our language, we say, Skana, I wish you peace. Yawako, tikaskata humustata. Kanikawan again.
Thank you, and now I would like to invite the Grand Chief from Karawage, and I'm just going to call her Gus Sky here.
Yeah, yaman akisa wat panorama sa magwego. Ahanda tiya gadaswa, gonek ne dokara ni gawanage tiya giro nyawa koa sa kwayetizu. Agwego tinahoda de sokwawi ne ganto tiya hunzade tiyore ne karugade na gwadi etanuyota na gwadi gora. So what I did was I gave acknowledgement to the Creator and all the beautiful things that we have here on Mother Earth, all the way to the stars in the heavens, because without them doing their work and responsibility for us, we wouldn't be here today. Kasanahawe Saidir Yujats, Wagatahuni, Kahnawage Nikawageno, Dano Negi on Hudza, Jojage Gowayats, Negi on Hudza, Ne Rodinoshuni Dano Ganyagahaga. This is the unceded territory of the Mohawk people of the Rodinoshuni that you're standing on today. Let's hear it. So today commemorates the second year National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. I hope you feel the energy through all the people here today. And if you are Indigenous, I want you to raise your fist. And I want you to scream so that those ancestors and those children's spirits can hear you. Yeah! So, orange shirts. Why are we wearing these shirts today? I have to acknowledge my sister of the Ganyagahaga Nation, Ellen Gabriel. She's been an activist for many years, and she said she doesn't really feel the fruits of her labor. And we're going to carry on the fight, because that's what we do. We're still here after everything they tried to do to us. 500 years, attempted genocide, assimilation, taking our language, our culture, but we're still here. Say goodbye, guys. We have a lot of work ahead of us, people. It's only the tip of the iceberg. But after those first 215 were discovered last year, people started to become cognizant of what we always knew. Our brothers and sisters, our young kids that were stolen from us, who never returned home, now the world knows. That's our responsibility now, to educate. No pride in genocide and what happened in this country, and it's not just Canada. All of Turtle Island. This was happening also in the United States. Children being stolen from their homes, not being raised by their parents, not being shown love. They were punished, they were brutalized, they experienced physical abuse, sexual abuse, violence, all because of their identity and being brown-skinned, Indigenous, First Nation people. What's wrong with that?
Shame.
But you know what? Like I said, look around. Our spirit is not broken. Our spirit is awakening. We're becoming strong. We are proud. We are going to do everything in our power to reclaim our Indigenous languages, to reclaim and revitalize our culture, because it's still there. Our people are resilient, they're strong, and despite all that adversity, of everything we've been through, we're still here, and we're going to continue on this fight. Because as Ellen mentioned, there's still so many oppressive policies and laws that govern Indigenous people in this country. The Indian Act, you know, how is it that the federal government of Canada can dictate and decide who is an Indian? That needs to change. We know who our people are. We need to get back to a way where we recognize our people, our nations, our clans, our traditional way of doing. People might say, well, you're very hypocritical. You're a part of the elected system, the imposed elected system that the Indian Act put on our reserves and our communities to get us away from our Indigenous governance structures. Well, you know what? It's nobody's fault what has happened to our people. But a lot of us are doing the work to reconcile and to fix what they tried to do to us. It's going to take time. You know, they say, even with regard to languages, it takes one generation to lose a language, but it takes 3 to try to bring it back. So we all have a role and a responsibility in that regard to honor, I would say, all of those lost children. 10,000 bodies now have been found at these schools. That's ridiculous. And we're only 1/3 of the way through all of the residential schools doing sonar radar to find those bodies, those unmarked graves of kids that never made it home. Can you imagine how many more Indigenous people there would be across this country if each of those children had a child and they had a child? It's just unbelievable what this country has put Indigenous people through, as Ellen said, to get our land, to get our resources. So we're going to continue to fight. We're going to continue to educate everyday Canadians, the settlers who are here on this land, to know the history, to know the reality, so that you'll stop stereotyping First Nations and Indigenous peoples as being drug addicts and alcoholics, and that it's your tax dollars that pay for your existence. No, this is our land, it's our resources, and we are owed.